Welcome viewers, my name is Casey Kaki and I'm a special effects makeup artist located here in Arizona. And today what we're going to do is go over a couple looks that you can use for Comic Fest coming up this Memorial Day weekend. For what I'm doing right now is I'm taking the liquid latex, or you're welcome to use Elmer's glue. It's going to do the same thing. And I'm using it to apply a tissue and latex made application. So we want to make sure that we're hitting all of our borders, especially since we're applying that application around big muscle moving areas. The underneath part's always the trickiest because that's where most of the movement's going to come into. Plus, you want to make sure as you lightly press down that no glue is getting shoved up near the baby eyelashes, because those you want to make sure you're keeping. So you want to give your prosthetic about 1 to 2 minutes to fully dry. Keep going around touching it, making sure that there's no areas popping up. I like to go through with a couple extra pieces of loose tissue and maybe go back where my prosthetic really wasn't what I wanted it to be. Maybe I missed some edges, it looks a little papery, and I want to pull it back and really make some rougher edges. So never be afraid to add to any sort of injury. So as that portion's starting to dry, I'm going to go in with a bright red paint color. I'm going to apply this with just a regular paintbrush. You can use almost like a basic shadow brush. And I'm just gonna lightly go over my prosthetic. Something to keep in mind is that with injuries, you want to always have those bright colors on the outsides. It gives a more realistic feel with an impact wound. If it looks super bright and red, that's okay, because we're gonna be shading it with all different types of color. Next up, to add some depth, I'm going to be taking a black paint and mixing just a little bit within our red. We want to get like kind of this nice maroon color going. So with a wound like this, the darker colors you really want to bring into those ridges. So what I'm doing is really trying to find areas that would stand out, kind of those deeper pit holes. And now I'm going to go back with a black and find my ridges. What I want to do now is go back with a bruise wheel and make these edges more realistic because it's just too bright. So I'm starting off with a dark blue. I've peeled apart my wedge to make it very textured rather than just having a square. And you always want to pull your brush outward. I'm going over her nose kind of with more darker purples and blues just to give more of like a fractured appeal. Sometimes it's hard to get into that eye socket area, so I always take a little brush, add some purple and blue, maybe a highlight of maroon, and go into that socket. And then you just want to pull that color out, fade it naturally into the skin. We're going to take our black. We have all these little dots that are kind of just open. Those are our deep crevices. We want to go back and fill some of those in with black. Next up, I take just a regular hand nail file, and I'm going to use our thick blood. You can get it at Weslie's or Amazon sells it. And I'm going to start applying it almost near my edges. It's going to look like that's just part of the wound. What I'm trying to do is hide any edges from my application where I don't want the audience to see that's where it's sealed on. I also like to put it down on my heavier edges just because it's just another reinforcement of glue. With thick blood, less is always more because you're about to get the liquid blood out. So liquid blood, I always just pour it into my thick blood. Helps your thick blood stay hydrated over the course of time as well. I'm gonna dive right into it. Do a couple dabs. And I always start from the top. That way if you have excess that runs down, you have stuff to work with. Always just do a light layer because that is essentially what's gonna pick up your tones in your palette. You don't wanna cover all your great shading with just blood. And then you just wanna step back, make sure your look looks complete, that you have everything where you want it, and you're ready for a great day.